Hey, I want to share with some quotations with you and get your feedback. Saint Josemaría Escrivá, you and I are both fans of this wonderful man. There is a need for a crusade of manliness and purity to counteract and nullify the savage work of those who think man is a beast, and that crusade is your work.
Love it. I love the way, just because essentially what it does, he just smiles at you and then he smacks you in the face.
He's good at that.
And, I mean, for any of your viewers watching, I have not got, just get on Amazon, buy the Way, the Furrow, Forged, especially the Way. It's just 1,000 little quotes, like literally a sentence or two long each, but each of them are just kind of like a Bruce Lee punch from a foot away, just pop, and and you can just sit on some of these quotes and mull over them, like that one, like. There's this need for a crusade of manliness to counteract, this lie that man is just this beast, and that job is your job. And I find guys especially respond to that, because if you want a man to respond, you can't treat him like he's the problem. You have to treat him like he's the solution. Even if he is the problem, you have to treat him like he's the solution, and he's more prone to rise up. It's like, okay, you're not shaming me. You're calling me to a crusade here. You're calling me to something heroic to overturn this. Okay, I want to be part of that. I want to be authentically manly, because what porn does is it just emasculates us. I mean, the best understanding is what Aquinas gave us of effeminacy. It's just that inordinate attachment to the good, and it's a refusal to let go of what is pleasurable in order to do what is arduous. And if that's what makes a man effeminate, then we literally have a pandemic of effeminate men in the world who might be exteriorly really machismo, but inside, like, they're deeply effeminate. I mean, they might have slept with 15 women this year and have like the best subscriptions on all the porn websites, but and they could grow a beard in like 15 minutes, like super testosterone, but deeply effeminate.
That's and that's important to make that distinction too, right? Like, neither of us are saying people who have typical feminine traits. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about effeminacy. I love what Thomas Aquinas has to say there, where you refuse to do what is arduous or to do your duty because of something that's more easy. And it's so true. I mean, you can have, I'm just reiterating what you just said, but you have all these guys who can look super manly, but if they can't say no to what's yes to what's arduous and no to what's expedient at their own expense.
And then I think that's partly why they hyper-masculinize, because we're called to be masculine men. And we've got to find some way to play the part. But I don't know about you, but like some of the most masculine men I've met are sometimes very frail men. Men that have been crippled through injury or illness or this or that, but their life is a Holocaust. They're kind of like burning themselves out for their family, for their vocations, kind of like the little red candle that sits next to a tabernacle that just burns itself out until there's nothing left. I mean, it's quiet, it's present, it's close to our Lord, but it illuminates so much. And so to me, the most manly men I met did not necessarily fit the stereotypical mold.
Right, yeah, so it's like we want the accidents of masculinity without the substance, right?
Bingo.
Because the accidents are pretty easy to attain, you just have to have the right haircut and whatever, but the substance is difficult. What about this quote? This is from Josemaría Escrivá again. He says, "Don't say that's the way I am. It's my character. It's your lack of character. Estovir. Be a man."
No, I mean, that's a perfect example of one of those just smack in the face things. Like, oh, this is just the way I am. It's like, no, don't hide behind that garbage. This is not who you are at all. That's why, I think of sin. What sin does is it dulls your individuality. I mean, you think of the worst sinners in the world, the child molesters and the terrorists and drug cartel people. I mean, they're literally clones of each other. I mean, you look at like footage of terrorists, it's like you can't even tell them apart. I mean, go to death row, look at the inmates of child, abuse, murders, victim, like they look like clones of each other. But then you look at the communion of saints and it's like the radiance of how unique these people are, from your Mother Teresa's to your Joan of Arc's to people like St. Louis de Montfort, who said if he hadn't been a priest, he would have been the worst criminals that France had ever known. So you've got these, guys like that. But the beauty is just that this extraordinary variety, that sainthood is kind of the full bloom of the human personality. what sin does, it just dulls all of that, just flattens all the layers of our personality. And then we're afraid, oh, but if I come to God, he's going to take me away from myself. It's like, no, that's what sin does. Yeah. And so what Josemaría Escrivá is trying to do here is going to give us a slap upside the head of like, don't say this is who you are. This is the loss of your identity, not the defense of it.
And I know you've pointed this out before, but like these adult neon signs, all the concentrated effort from Pornhub, it's like it's the height of defensive advertising, I've heard you say, right? Because if I'm going to try to encourage you to do something that in your bones you know is shameful, like if a monkey did it, it would be shameful, much less a man, right? Then it's like we have to pretend to you that what you're doing is actually super mature and manly, and that leads into this quote, because I think Escrivá does a good job breaking it apart. He says, "Purity, they ask, and they smile. They are the ones who go on to marriage with worn-out bodies and disillusioned souls." I mean, this is, you know, this is not us picking on anybody who's got a past, because we all have a past. Yeah. But just, I think what it does is it dismantles that lie from hell and from Pornhub and co. that would seek to show chastity as somehow effeminate.
Yeah, no, I mean, to the first point, in terms of, like, you know, gentleman's club, I mean, think of a man who's authentically a gentleman. Like, does he really need, like, a pink neon sign to declare that he is one? I mean, usually actions pretty much speak for themselves. And so needing to have such a, you know, a pink neon sign, gentlemen are in here, these are gentlemen inside this club. Yeah, sure they are. The strippers know much better. They're not dealing with gentlemen when they're showing up at work for that day. There's a tremendous resentment that they feel as they stand in front of these guys that are using them while they're using the men at the same time. So, yeah, that's your first point. The second point, this goes back to what John Paul talked about in his book, Love and Responsibility, of resenting chastity. That essentially what resenting chastity is recognizing there's a challenge there. But instead of just outright saying that's too much effort, what you try to do is you try to devalue the good of chastity itself, so you can lightheartedly pass it by to prefer what's more comfortable and convenient, treating it like it's kind of unhealthy or neurotic or, you know, just too much. And so that way you can kind of lightheartedly pass by it instead of giving it the acknowledgement of the good that it deserves, of like, yeah, that is a virtue, that is a good, but that's really demanding and I don't feel like doing it. That requires a lot of humility. They don't want to have that, so they just devalue chastity and pretend like it's just this neurotic repression of desire.
You know, Friedrich Nietzsche had this idea of ressentiment, the French word for resentment, and he used it in a particular way. Now, to be fair, he was aiming this at Christians, so I would disagree with his application, but I think the insight is brilliant. And it's essentially, when I feel myself impotent to attain a particular good, I demonize that good. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if that's why we so hate people posting their workout photos on Instagram. It may be because this is a blatant display of their own ego, but it also might be that they look better than you and they've got the self-control to stay in the gym, whereas you don't, and it's much easier to say, I'm glad I'm not like them, while you do nothing with your life. So I think that applies here too.
Yeah, no, there could be a temptation there for sure. I mean, I was at the gym yesterday or the day before, and there was a guy in the mirror, you know, probably 18 years old, just doing the full-blown bodybuilding poses and like squeezing his quads and doing this and that, you know, and it did look, I mean, it did granted look a little bit funny, but it probably would have looked a lot more funny if I tried doing that with my thighs in the mirror. I remember I bought a pair of workout shorts and I wasn't sure what the right inseam was, so I got the 5-inch ones and I put those on. I'm like, this is false advertising. Like, my quads look nothing like the guys on Instagram, and so I returned them because it's clearly false advertising that you would look the same way. But yeah, it's a lot easier to kind of, you know, mock somebody else instead of being, you know, like, am I doing what I need to do to be in shape, or am I just kind of tearing that down? And so we might do that, I think, in the life of virtue as well, especially when it comes to stuff like chastity. It's just a lot easier to say, oh, that's just unhealthy. Who would want to do that to themselves?